Welcome to Thursday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live here on Giants.com, as well as the mobile app. He's Jonathan Casillas. I'm Lance Medow with you for the next 60 minutes. In multiple ways you'd interact with us here on the program. You give us a ring, 201-939-4513. You can also hit us up on Twitter, hashtag GiantsChat. And as a reminder, you can find the archive of this show and our entire podcast network on the Giants mobile app, podcast platforms everywhere, and at Giants.com/podcast. So a busy day here at the Giants facility. We had the three coordinators speak earlier today. We had a few players speak after practice. And then, of course, some takeaways from practice. And by far, JC, the biggest storyline is the play of Jalen Hyatt, who I think is turning heads on a daily basis. Specifically, we saw him make two great grabs deep down the field in the end zone. And we knew about his speed, but as you can attest to from being a former player, it's one thing for a guy to be able to run by a defender. It's another thing, can he be on point, haul it in, secure the football? And we're seeing the combination of both on full display thus far.
Yeah, today, it was two times he got behind the defense, and Daniel Jones put the ball right where it was supposed to be at. And Jalen Hyatt did such a good job at tracking the ball 40, 50 yards down the field, running full speed and bringing the ball in. And it was one time he was behind the coverage, and it was another time he caught for a touchdown in between two defenders. And that just shows me he's a guy that when the deep ball needs to get thrown, he's a guy that you definitely can count on. And, of course, it's early. It's training camp. But it's so good to see because I think there has been a lack thereof for the New York Giants for a very long time.
Well, and that's why it can mean wonders for the other players on offense. I think that's really what you're hitting on, given the fact that they haven't necessarily had that presence in quite some time.
And Lance, every single game that we've done, I always say they got to take a shot. The Giants have to take a shot early in the game to soften up the defensive backs, especially the safeties. As a safety, if you got a guy like 84, and I was comparing him today to Mike Wallace for the Pittsburgh Steelers, that not too many people know about. Like, you got to be a football guy, I think, to know Mike Wallace. He was the other guy across from Antonio Brown. Some would say you got to be a
news guy, but we'll get to that reference later.
Well, there you go. You're a football guy.
Yes.
Come on, Lance. You're a sports guy. You're a football guy. You know a lot about sports in general. You know who Mike Wallace is. We had to go back and watch Mike Wallace on other teams because he was so fast that if you don't get back, if you don't honor him, it's a touchdown. And that's the predicament that Jalen Hyatt is going to put defenses in. At least that's what he's showing right now in training camp. And that's what the Giants need. Because look at all the other receivers besides Hodgins.
Sure.
They're all playing in inside. They're all running those intermediate routes, those position and those, the route tree routes, not just the deeper routes, but the route tree routes. And that, if you have a guy who can soften those safeties up or back those corners up and even get guys to not focus in on a run in the front seven, it'll open up so much for the offense. And that's the thing I always said during the season last year. The Giants need to start taking more shots, especially early, to soften up, to open up the lanes for the run game.
Loosens up the box. That's
Exactly.
essentially what happens. And you want a safety to start thinking. What side of the field does he want to focus on? Can he afford to leave the corner all by himself on Jalen Hyatt's side of the field? And then all of a sudden, now the middle of the field is open for Darren Waller, or the middle of the field is open for Isaiah Hodgins. So when you have a guy that can take the top off the ball, and in fairness, John Ross was here, the former first-round pick from the Bengals, and he did show that. It was flashes. It wasn't necessarily consistent, and it just goes to show you when you have that guy, I call him a home run threat, right? The baseball analogy. Not only is he giving the defense something to think about, but now the rest of the players benefit. And that's the key, because now you have to think about what's the priority as a defensive coordinator and as a defender. What are you looking to shore up? Is it the middle of the field? Is it stopping Saquon Barkley with the run? Is it preventing the explosive plays that you're talking about that they need desperately based on last year's numbers?
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think, look, when you make a play like that, a deep play, there has to be a lot of things that happen. Number one, the offensive line has to protect. That was something that we hit on last year multiple times, that Daniel Jones didn't have time to throw. And we're talking about the Eagles. I'm like, they need to open up, against the Eagles. Like, does he have time to throw? That's a good question. But with this O-line, I feel like it's an improved O-line. I think John Michael Smith is going to show that he belongs to start at center for the New York Giants. And that's going to create time for Daniel Jones, who is the second part in this whole equation, that Daniel Jones is actually throwing that ball down the field. He's actually making that pass, and it's very accurate. And it's like some of those passes are behind the defense, and there's only one person that can get him is Jalen Hyatt. And it's a combination of all those things happening that I feel like just wasn't abundant last year at all. I mean, it happened very sparingly with Slayton, but that was it. Maybe Isaiah Hodgins later in the season, maybe once or twice. But, bro, I'm talking about every single game. You need to go up top to 84 early in the game. That'll help loosen up the coverage. As a defender, I will look at my safeties and be like, yo, can we get back, please? And that's the same thing a defensive coordinator would say. If 84 is lined up on your side and you got half field, please play the freaking half field. And then that'll open up lanes for Waller. Because when you're on defense, you're going to know what the danger guys are, right? 26 is a guy, you got to know where he's at, Saquon Barkley. Darren Waller, you got to know where he's at. If 84 is out wide, your safeties, your corners, you better understand if he runs a vertical route, you better haul it. Not just be back, but you better be hauling. Because number one, he's going to run past you because he can. Number two, they're going to be able to protect. Number three, Daniel Jones is now looking like he's willing to throw that ball. Because I think last year he wasn't willing to throw it a lot. And I think for all the things that I said, the lack of a deep threat, and then the offensive line protection.
Combination of both.
Yeah.
No, 100%. I think those were two factors why you didn't see a lot of explosive plays. Also, you had injuries to the receiving core. There wasn't necessarily a consistent group within the mix. But with respect to Jalen Hyatt, the other thing that I think may show up throughout the course of the season, if safeties and corners start respecting his speed, which means they're going to play much off of him, Jonathan, it's possible you can adjust your route, come back to the ball, right? And take the 10-yard first down.
Absolutely.
You don't need to necessarily have 40 to 50 yards down the field on every play. If they're going to play off of you, then adjust accordingly and come back to the football. You could see a lot of that happen throughout the season.
I think that's where you see Tyreek Hill, his success has come from because he was known as a deep threat guy. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh, he's running other routes. You know why he'd run other routes? Because you have to honor that deep ball. So if he's running full steam ahead, you better get out your pedal. You better flip your hips. You have to. And then you flip your hips, all of a sudden he runs a comeback. All of a sudden he runs a dig, or you would square in. Whatever the case is, that gets that separation. Something that I feel like Giants, there was separation last year. I think Richie James created a lot of separation because he worked over the middle a lot, sometimes as nickels, sometimes as linebackers. But on the outside, those are the most talented players. I'm talking about cornerbacks. They're the most talented guys on the defensive side of the ball. They're very skilled. They understand how to play with leverage. They understand how to play with technique. All of that. You're not going to get that much open on them unless you have them thinking. Because these guys, the corners in this league, they get paid a lot of money for a reason. They're really good, most of the corners. And we got some really good corners in this division. Going to Philly, going to Dallas, they got some really good corners. Both of them teams having a tandem of corners. You have to find ways to get open. Jalen Hyatt is creating that buffer between him and that corner, between him and that safety to run a lot of underneath routes. And people always, not always, but people been questioning his actual route running. For me, if I was Jalen Hyatt, don't even buy into all of that stuff. Go ahead and try to catch me. Catch me running deep.
Regardless of the route.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, if I'm only running deep routes, okay, cool. Guard me then. And then if you can guard me now, because you can guard me, that means you had to be cheating almost. Now the underneath routes open up just for him. And that just opens up the entire playbook. Jalen Hyatt can change the projection of his offense. Straight up like that.
Without a doubt.
Because of his speed.
Yeah, and you look around the league. You brought up Tyreek Hill and the Kansas City Chiefs. It's no surprise that when Kansas City has the rest of its receiving core on paper, people don't get ultra excited, right, with respect to those names. But think about how much all those guys benefit from the presence of Tyreek Hill, including Travis Kelce.
Yep.
It goes to show you don't need 3 Pro Bowlers necessarily in your lineup if one guy in particular takes up all that attention. You brought up the cornerbacks. I want to flip the script here because another storyline that I think we're seeing emerged over the last few practices is clearly the strong play of Trey Hawkins and him earning some reps with the first team, but Adoree Jackson getting some looks in the slot as a result of them putting Hawkins in the first team alignment and lining him up outside. And Wink Martindale was asked about, well, does this mean this is something that you could look to implement over the course of the regular season? He says, hey, this is the type of year it's experimentation. You want to get guys mixed and matched and see what they could do. And Adoree spoke to the media after practice and said, he's willing to move around. And the more and more you think about it, Jonathan, when you look at what other teams specifically in the division have to offer, and pretty much all 3 teams have 3 wide receivers without any hesitation, right, that they would put on the field, you're going to need your slot guy to match
Absolutely.
up with a consistent weapon. So this idea, well, you may be throwing Adoree into uncharted territory. First of all, he said he's been exposed to the slot in high school and college. So it's not as if you're putting him in the deep end
Right.
and you're saying, okay, no swimmies. Let's see what you can do.
Right.
I think he's going to be okay. But the point is, for example, the Cowboys, they may line C.D. Lamb up in the slot.
Right.
Well, what's wrong with putting Adoree Jackson
Right.
on him? Or Washington with all of the variety of different guys. If Curtis Samuel lines up in the slot, what's wrong with putting Adoree Jackson on them? I don't think that's a bad situation.
Not at
My
all.
point is that you're putting Adoree in.
Not at all. And that nickel position I feel like it's an underrated position because people don't understand, I think, the difficulties in playing that position. Because number one, you got to be a corner. You got to be able to run with these receivers. You got to be able to play these receivers on all the vertical routes or the underneath routes. And then in the run game, you're almost a linebacker in certain formations. Like you're literally in the box. You got to fill in a B gap, a C gap. So who, not to say there's nobody else that can do it, but who has the experience to play inside and outside besides Adoree Jackson? You get a guy like Trey Hawkins, and I equate it to the 2016 year when Eli Apple was drafted.
Yep.
And Janoris Jenkins came over. They was going to bump DRC inside, Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie. And I was like, why would we do something like that? He's such a good outside corner. And DRC kind of had a little bit of a problem with it. But when he moved inside, and like you said, now he's guarding maybe their second or third best option, DRC has no problem guarding those type of guys. And then the help was either thrown to Eli Apple, and he was holding his own throughout the year. And we had a lot better contested passes throughout the year because of everybody playing a position that they're either familiar with or they have experience at or they do very well at. Now, last year, we had a lot of guys playing at cornerback that never played it down at all, and these younger guys, Hawkins and Banks, they're getting a lot of quality reps right now. And I think that's going to bode well for them this season. And if Adoree Jackson has to move inside, so what? If you have two corners, because Hawkins is a lot bigger than Adoree Jackson.
Oh, yeah.
Or Adoree Jackson is not a big guy. He's a smart guy. He has great instincts, great technique, but he's not a big guy. Hawkins can actually match up against the bigger receivers in this division, like a C.D. Lamb, like a Scary Terry McLaurin over there in Washington, A.J. Brown over there in Philly.
Or Devontae Smith, yeah.
Devontae Smith, not big guy, but
No, but what I'm saying is
vertical
weapons.
threat,
yeah.
right? A weapon.
Yeah.
He has a bigger body and frame to match up a little bit better than Adoree that has to use basically technique.
No, I think that's a great point. The other thing I was going to add is when you play in the slot, and you know this better than anybody, you don't have a very tight space to operate within, right? And you don't have the boundary of the sideline. So it's really maybe more so, Jonathan, about smarts and savviness than skill set and talent, because if you can't dictate the traffic and be comfortable when there's a lot of activity right in your vicinity, you're going to be lost. So I look at Adoree getting some time in the slot as a positive for the Giants, not necessarily a liability. And, based on what we're talking about the division, it just goes to show you need three corners in this league. You can't have two and then feel okay about your third, because I want to go back to your experience in 2016, and I'm not pouring salt in your wounds, okay? But when DRC got hurt in that Packers playoff game, what did Aaron Rodgers do the minute DRC was pulled off the field? He started targeting the replacement for DRC.
And that's what good quarterbacks do.
Exactly.
I spoke to Owens today a little bit. He was showing his blitz a little bit. And I was like, hey, you got to make your blitzes look like every single time you line up on a line of scrimmage, whether you're bluffing or you're blitzing, you have to make them look exactly the same. All the good quarterbacks in the league, they're going to look and they're going to see right away you're not coming. They're going to see that. They're going to see that safety moving over. Oh, he's not coming. It's so easy for them because they've seen it so many times. And it could be your left foot forward instead of your right foot. It could be you actually squinting down or you peeking back. They'll see all of that stuff.
The subtleties.
But the rookies, they don't understand that. They don't understand the high level of play of guys on the offensive side of the ball, because you just don't see that in college. You don't see quarterbacks that make checks because they know what you're in, even though you're in a full disguise, but they know what you're in. And you don't know that they know that you're in, that they know what you're in. But I told them that because this is something this is level 424. You know what I mean? This is not one-on-one. This is a high level. When you get to the NFL, the first week in OTAs, it's very vanilla. Even training camp is very vanilla. They're going to run, very vanilla, easy plays, easy coverages, easy defenses. Once you hit that regular season, this is all advanced level classes in football. This is not football 101. There's no entry courses during the season, right? This is how you make plays when you make the blitzes and your coverages look exactly the same. Now you got them guessing, second guessing. If they know what you're in, you can't do anything because these offenses, the way these teams are built, they have an answer for everything that you do, just like defenses. Defenses have coverages for everything offenses do, vice versa. But if you know what they're in, that bodes tremendously for you. Why do you think Luke Kuechly has so much success? He studied film so much that he knew what was going to happen. If you know what's going to happen, you can have success. If you're showing what's going to happen, that gives the other team the success. And you got to have a lot of guys like Owens and anybody that's going to play that's been drafted this year, which I think is going to be a lot of guys. They have to get from intro course to that second level 202 course to those advanced 600 level courses right away, Lance. Has to happen right away.
Advanced placement. They're going to take
absolutely.
the
AP courses. Yeah, absolutely.
Of course. Oh, I know what you're talking. We're singing the same music with respect to that. No, all relevant topics that I think are going to come into play with respect to this season. And, once again, it's better to get their feet wet this early in training camp.
Exposed. Yep.
Especially if you never know how the injury bug will show up, and it's the guarantee in the NFL. If you could get a Trey Hawkins with the first team throughout the course of training camp, maybe week 4, week 5, something comes up, you want to play him a little bit more. Maybe it's not as much of a rude awakening. There's always going to be the growing pains.
Yes,
that goes without
sure.
saying. But you at least lined him up in that spot with a Dory maybe in the slot, and you're not going through the reps for the first time in an actual meaningful regular season game. Lance Medow, Jonathan Casillas with you here. Thursday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live. A few reminders here before we open up the phone lines. In terms of the Giants Huddle podcast, you can check that out on your favorite podcast platform. You could also go to giants.com/podcasts. The 2023 NFL schedule, it's officially out. Single game tickets are on sale now. Don't miss the Giants at MetLife Stadium this season. Visit giants.com/tickets to secure your seat. You can also take your fandom to the next level with a season ticket membership. Stay connected to the club all year round. Not just on game days, memberships are now available for the 2023 season. To learn more about all the exclusive member benefits, visit giants.com/tickets. Limited inventory is available. And last but not least, the Giants official connected TV streaming app, Giants TV. It brings you original video game content and game highlights on demand and direct to Big Blue fans. Giants TV, it's free. It's on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, as well as the Giants mobile app. So let's open up the phone lines at 201-939-4513. We check in with Jason in New Haven, joining us here on BBKL. What's happening, Jason? What do you got for us?
How you guys doing?
Doing all right.
Good, man.
What's on your mind?
Thanks for taking my call. Just real quick, Jonathan, it's nice talking to you, or seeing you on BBKL. So it's a pleasure, being on the line with you. I just want to give you your flowers. I think it was like the 2017 season. I remember one of the plays from you that was a big play. I think we was playing the Ravens, and they was at the goal line, and Flacco threw I don't know if he threw I forgot what it was, but it was a run play, and you shedded the fullback and stopped the running back at the 1-yard line. So I always remember that play from you.
Thank you, man. That was 2016. Yep, 4th and goal.
Yep.
Good stop.
16. I don't know who the running back was.
It was West.
For the Ravens.
It was West.
Yes. So just want to give you your flowers.
Appreciate that, brother.
Yeah, no problem. Real quick, I know you got other callers. I'll try to make a few points.
Well, how do you know we have other callers? Maybe you can maximize the phone call. You're making assumptions here.
Bro, we got other callers. Let's go. Go.
We don't know. We like to create a little bit of mystery here on the program. We may not. I don't know.
I'm sure you got a lot of calls behind me. So I'll try to make it quick. Few things. There's been a lot of positive vibes from the team, from training camp. Now, I will say this. As a fan, I try not to get too hyped up with these practices. I mean, the players know each other, the corners know the receivers know the corners. The real test is going to be next week when we practice against Detroit. I remember, and I know, Jonathan, maybe you could elaborate, because sometimes I forget as well. I remember one year we had a really good training camp. There was a lot of buzz. I want to say maybe the 2017 season. And I remember we went to Cincinnati. That's when they still had A.J. Green and forgot the quarterback. escapes me.
Andy
Carson?
Dalton.
Was it
Andy
Carson?
Dalton.
No, Dalton was the quarterback
yeah.
by then. Yeah.
You're right. It was
Andy Dalton, yep. And I remember hearing reports from that joint practice how we were just getting annihilated by Cincy. So I'm excited for all the players. A lot of the plays are being made, but I'm going to hold my reservation until that Detroit game. Second, Detroit joint practice. A few other points. And I'll make it quick, and maybe you can answer off the air, however you want to do it.
Yeah, that's how we'll do it. Yeah.
Okay, so the first one, I think, I don't know why fans or just media or whoever, guys on Twitter, are overreacting about Deonte Banks. Being a corner is notoriously one of the hardest, outside of tackling a quarterback, one of the hardest positions to acclimate yourself into when you get to the league, and I'm sure you two know that as well. So, listen, I'm not too overly too nervous about Banks. He'll catch his stride. I mean, he's playing against some really fast pro receivers. You got Beasley, Shepard, you got Hodges. I mean, it's a lot of competition, and I'm sure it'll make him better. So I wouldn't get too worried about Banks. Has he gotten beat on some plays in practice? Of course, but most corners are going to get beat on practice. They're not
Jason,
tackling.
he hasn't played one NFL regular season snap yet. So I think we can hold off on making declarations about rookie players.
Absolutely. Last 2 points. Just seeing how just reading the tea leaves and watching some of these practices on Giants.com and stuff, I'm really amazed. Last year, we talked about our skill position players, and we had to do more of a boot action, play action kind of offense, use Daniel's legs, that's so on and so forth, which worked last year. But just seeing some of these clips of how fast our offense looks, I remember for years just being jealous of Kansas City with Tyreek, and they have McCole Hardman. Even in Miami, they got Tyreek, they got Waddle, and I'm just like, damn, like these teams have so much speed on the field. Like, it's hard to just cover that much grass. And it looks like we're trending. Now, we haven't played yet, and I get that, but it looks like we're trending towards that. It's a lot of speed. Waller, Hyatt, Slayton. I mean, Barkley, Breida. I mean, you just name it. I mean, it just seems like a lot of speed. And the last point, one player that I'm very interested in, who I think is actually going to make this roster, is Cole Beasley. I don't think. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, he's 34, he's older," but I don't look at it like that. I mean, he has some familiarity with the offense, and why wouldn't he be able to make the roster? I mean, he runs Chris routes, he catches everything. He was always a pain in our butt, and I'm sure, Jonathan, when he played in Dallas. So I don't think it's far-fetched for me to say he's going to make the roster. I think we're going to keep 7 receivers. I know that's
7 may be a lot.
receivers.
Yeah, I think that depends on maybe if 1 or 2 guys is on PUP or something like that. And I would think 6 would probably be the max. And we'll let you go on that note, Jason. Appreciate the phone call. Thanks for giving us a ring. I think 7 may be pushing it, Jonathan, especially when you have to look at the other needs on the roster. Plus, if they feel really good about a young guy, you would hope that they could get through waivers and you put him on the practice squad, and then you call up a guy from the practice squad in the event you suffer an injury or something like that.
Yeah, I think 6 might be the magic number for receivers. And it's so funny. I seen Cole Beasley, and I'm just looking at him up and down. I said, bro, I don't like that. I don't like. You say, like what? I said, you in that uniform. I just can't do it, bro. I can't do it now. He was like, well, you better get used to it. But it's interesting because, I've played in the league. I played in the league 9 years. I played against Cole Beasley tons of times, for different teams. And, he's a good receiver. I think it was good that the Giants picked him up, given the health of Sterling Shepard and his history, and then also the health of Wan'Dale Robinson, which guys are going to play in similar positions. And then you bring in Jamison Crowder as well, another guy from the division has a lot of familiarity with this team and this division, another guy that's kind of in a similar type of mode that's going to play in the inside. But the thing is, all of those guys that I named besides Wan'Dale have adequate experience in the NFL, have caught touchdown passes, have been a hero on third downs, have won games for teams. So they have adequate experience, and they bring that to that room, which I think lacked last year when Sterling went down. But now Sterling's back. He's healthy. We don't know exactly how much play he's actually going to get this year, given that he was just on PUP. He just got activated, 3 days ago? So they still have him on a pitch count. So Cole Beasley's coming in. Yeah, he's a little bit older, but if you get all of those guys, that means it's less reps for each guy, which would be good for guys that are a little bit older, right? They know how to run. They know how to run routes. Yes, you need to run them, but you don't need to run 1,000 of them.
No, not at all.
You know, and these guys can all help each other out, and I think it's going to push I think all the guys in the receiver room are going to push each other to get the best guy to play each position. And then they're all going to be versatile to play all the positions that the receivers have available. And I think that's the group you got. I think it's a great group of receivers. And you rated them number 1 overall.
Yeah, well, I've been saying that all offseason because of the volume and the depth. And Beasley just added to that total.
Yeah, he did.
When we were talking about that, Beasley wasn't even on the team.
Wasn't even there, yep.
I would say this. If Wan'Dale Robinson rolls over to regular season PUP because he's still on the training camp off-season PUP, then, that certainly increases the chances, you would think, of Cole Beasley making it to the 53-man roster. And then we'll see how active a participant Sterling Shepard is because, he's also working his way back with respect to a torn ACL, though he suffered the injury much earlier in the season than Wan'Dale Robinson. You have Paris Campbell, too. You continue to go through the list. You brought up Crowder. There's a lot of guys that are capable of playing on the inside. Yep. But as you were referencing, I don't think the Giants, when they're making the 53-man roster, they're saying to themselves, okay, we have 2 guys that can be on the inside. We have 3 other guys that can be on the outside. To your point, they look at these players as interchangeable. Some guys are going to be playing outside, inside, vice versa. It's not just, okay, we're going to keep this guy on the roster because he can only play on the inside. No, injury is going to come up. You want to have the flexibility and the leeway to move these players around. You don't want to have to get to 3 or 4 weeks into the season and say, oh, well, we don't feel confident about moving this guy to the inside. And I'll bring up a side note. When Tyke Tolbert, who was the longtime Giants wide receivers coach, whenever he would speak to the media, he would say, we train our wide receivers to learn every single position. We don't bring them in and say, okay, you're a slot guy, you're an outside guy. No, you're a wide receiver, period, end of discussion. And I feel as if this coaching staff has a very similar approach.
Yeah, but that's good because that adds versatility and the things that you want to do when injuries happen, because we all know it's a fact. It's a given. Injuries are going to happen.
Yeah, you're not going to get through the health of all these guys,
right.
100%.
Right, which is sad, but the truth. That's just what it is.
It's the reality,
right.
Yeah.
That's why when we talk about, the points that I wanted the Giants to hit this year was sign Daniel Jones, get offensive line, get a center, figure out the Saquon situation, sign him. But the number 2 was behind Daniel Jones was get depth. Because you need depth, because injuries will happen. And you need valuable players. You need players that when they come in, they have a little bit of experience. I think we saw last year a lot of guys came in on the back end that had no experience, and they showed it in the games. When it's week 12 and you got a guy with no experience playing against, I don't know, Aaron Rodgers, you know what I mean? And these guys playing in the slot, Devontae Adams, bro, like you literally have no chance. You have no chance going against these guys. And you're nervous, at least you talk about Trey Hawkins, he's getting out there now in training camp. He might be with the first team going against Amon-Ra St. Brown next week, in Detroit.
Yeah.
That'd be valuable experience now. Maybe he plays early, maybe he doesn't, but if he gets inserted to the lineup, that is useful. And that goes for all of the receivers, all the linebackers, all of the linemen that's getting quality reps right now. All of that stuff happens. All that stuff matters, because injuries will happen. And you need somebody to step up whenever it happens and be ready to go. Some guys, they think they're ready until they get in and they get in front of those lights, and it's a whole different story.
You can say that about most careers
right.
in society, right?
Indeed.
Until they throw you into the fire,
right.
It could very well be a rude awakening. And football is no different with respect to the dynamics of this game. All right, let's head back to the phone lines. We check in. Let's hear from Andrew in Virginia here on BBKL. What's happening, Andrew? What do you got for us?
Hey, guys. Shout out to Dominic on the phones.
Are you a cousin, a relative? What's the assassociation?
He's a fan.
No.
Well, it sounds like you're going out of your way to give him a little bit of pub here. I don't know. I'm suspicious.
I just want to be on record on talking about special teams for the first person this year. Coach Mack last year had a tough go with the jumbo, the jambalaya not being as resourced as it should be. So hopefully this year he has better talent to put in that jumbo, and I just hope people are paying attention to that. And I want to get your take on the new advisor that just joined. That's all I have. Thanks, guys.
All right. Appreciate the phone call. Thanks for giving us a ring. Thomas McGahee did speak to the media earlier today. He was asked about some of the guys in terms of the return game. Eric Gray was brought up, and we've seen him taking reps in the return game in practice. I saw him even put in work after practice, and he's an intriguing talent because I think he brings that speed and versatility that if they do want to throw him into the mix, that's a player to watch out for. And I'm sure he's going to get his fair share of opportunities in the preseason. As far as the caller's question about the overall substance of the special teams unit, and you know this from being a special teams player. First of all, you go into a season thinking, your core looks great, and then as injuries occur and they take you away from special teams and you become an every down offensive and defensive player, sometimes that's just, once again, a product of life in the NFL. But if you look at this draft class, Jonathan, they've added players. Javarius Owens, Trey Hawkins, the back-end defensive backs. They have a wealth of special teams experience before they even step foot on an NFL field here.
Which would be huge because, like he said, he's the first one to bring up special teams, but special teams is a third of the game of the NFL, right? And you have to have, I feel like, a strong core of guys. Of course, a good kicker, solid punter, great long snapper to be consistent. But then you also have to have great cover guys. You got to have guys that are selfless and a little bit crazy on kickoff and punt return, right? Because you got to have guys that'll go down there and do whatever it takes to stop that ball, right? And then on offense, on punt coverage, on punt, you got to have guys, first of all, the level of skill that punt requires, people don't understand. You got a whole bunch of linebackers and defensive ends and tight ends have done it, but who've never kick slid in their life. Now you got to go ahead and do that against a legit pass rusher. When they go punt safe, that's their first string defense out there. Like, you got to be on point. The Giants need a solid core. I throw Carter Coughlin in there. He's a guy that made that play last year to open up the season with that forced fumble on kickoff.
Cam Brown is another one.
You need guys like that all over the field, like not just in the linebacker room, because those are linebackers, right? Cam Brown is a safety. He was a linebacker.
No, Cam Brown's a linebacker.
He's a linebacker.
Yeah,
so I thought him a 47.
Sure.
Right. You need guys like that at corner. You need guys like that at receiver, and that will also help the receiver room as well, too. You got a guy that's coming like Dwayne Harris. Dwayne Harris for the Giants, he made the Pro Bowl or special teams because not only was he a great receiver, fourth, fifth receiver, he was a great blocking receiver. He was a fearless punt returner. Whenever he was at gunner, he was making plays. The Giants need guys like that. Big-time players. Dexter Lawrence, big-time player. Saquon Barkley, big-time player. Who is the big-time player besides Graham Gano? Who is the big-time player on special teams? Who is the Matthew Slaters, the Bethels of the world, the Jonathan Casillas of the world? Who is those guys that's going to make an impact on special teams and get that much closer to the other two big teams in our division?
Because what Thomas McGahee spoke about earlier today was that hidden yardage that adds up over the course of the regular season. It's not just necessarily one game on an island. It can win you and lose you games if you give
which it
an
did.
Additional kick return and a punt return. Yeah, because if you're going to shorten the field for these offenses, you're going to put that much more pressure on your defense. It's a fair question. It's a great question. We can only throw out some of these young guys that we've seen some flashes from. Tamon Fox is another guy I'll throw out. Dane Belton we saw play some special teams last year. The point is, between last year's draft class / undrafted guys, this year's class, you're seeing there's a volume of athletes. But until we see it done consistently, Thomas Gahey will tell you the same thing. There's potential, there's upside, but we're still in the feel it out process because we're getting a lot of these guys their feet wet.
Yep. Didn't he say last year it's like he's making jambalaya? Or was it gumbo? He said
gumbo. It was gumbo.
Whatever it is,
Correct.
he just throws it in there and see what he got.
1 week of shrimp.
Right. Whatever it is.
Ingredients every week.
But that's the task of a special teams coach, right? That's the task of a guy who he don't really know who he's playing Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. He might not know till Saturday, which is the day before the game.
Or he can have a plan going into the week and then it changes before kickoff or something like that.
Which is insane. But what I've known throughout the years, you got to have a core group of guys, right? Yes, one of the guys could get activated, but you got to have 2, 3, 4 guys that are on all 4 special teams. Kickoff, kick return, punt, and punt return. Of course, the kicking game as well, but that's Graham Gano and the offensive line and tight ends and all that good stuff. But when you talk about the 4 core special teams, and of course the NFL has been taking away special teams, but you still got to cover punts. You still have to cover punts. punt is probably the most important play on special teams because it's all about field position with punt, right? Offense gets backed up. All of a sudden, a great punt, creates that field position, right? A bad punt or a punt return creates that field position and swing. That's the hidden yardage that really don't get accounted for at the end of games. Giants, I feel like, haven't had that presence there for a while, actually. And let's see this year because they have had a great draft class, and I feel like they have drafted a lot of guys that can play special teams. And you might see, like a Zimenez. You might see a Zimenez make the team because of special teams.
I would say there's a very strong chance that facet is going to be a deciding factor in his fate.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you look for a guy like that to not only make the team on special teams, but be a vital cog when it comes down to the deciding factor and what made the play to win this game. And sometimes it's special teams. A block punt here, a drop punt here,
that can come back to bite you.
It could come back to bite you. So you need a core of guys because the kicker and the punter situation is all figured out. But you need a core of guys that's going to go cover these kicks and that's going to block and help create that field position and that hidden yardage that no one talks about.
Well, Tamon Fox is a perfect example. Last season, he made the team. I'm not saying it was only because of what he did on special teams. They liked the pass rushing ability. But if you remember, one of the preseason games, they went, I believe it was an onside kick, and Fox laid a hit, helped recover a football. Those things show up on film, and now the coaches have something to think about. You brought up Dwayne Harris. I think that's an excellent example because he was on all 4 teams. The other guy that comes to mind in recent history, Antonio Hamilton, who's now on the Cardinals, who actually has become more of a corner. Michael Thomas, another great one, went to the Cincinnati Bengals. Those guys are the bread and butter of your special teams.
Yep. And those guys, I like Michael Thomas so much.
Fantastic. And
he was such a great dude.
Yeah.
He was a leader. But you get a guy like that, that's going to propel your special teams unit. You're going to look at him and be like, all right, I can't let Michael down. You know what I mean? You're a young guy. You don't know nothing. But you I don't want to let him down because this is 10th year, 11th year, whatever. And this is how he makes and feeds his kids,
Sure.
And you got to have guys like that. And I look at Carter Coughlin and be that guy for the New York Giants. He's been here for a while, not really playing too much defense, but I see him consistently every single year as a guy that's making plays on special teams.
Coughlin, 7th-round pick in 2020. You do the math. This is a huge year for him.
Yep, huge year.
Here's the 4th and final year of his rookie contract. So he understands what's on the line under those circumstances. All right, let's head back to the phone lines. We've got Dave in Cranford joining us here on Big Blue Kickoff Live. What's happening, Dave? What do you got for us?
Yo, boys. So first thing, I just want to shout out Dom. Thanks so much for getting me through. There's just another shout out to him.
Is he requesting shout outs? What's going on?
I
here?
just think this is a trend here.
I couldn't get I couldn't get through.
Are you writing the check? Are you making sure that you have his last name and his middle initial to make out the check accordingly? No?
He just seems like a good guy.
Oh,
everybody wants me to take Pearson's spot in here.
Apparently. Well, we have a competition on the production side. Okay.
We love Pearson. Hey, so first thing is it's great talking to both of you. Jonathan, had a pleasure of bringing my son to meet you a couple years ago in New Brunswick, back to your hometown, back to your area. And can't thank you enough, man. It sounds crazy, but he was a young kid going into high school, middle linebacker. Poor kid had me as a father, so he's a slow-footed white man, so that was a problem. But anyway, he was smart and tough. But it's so funny because you pulled him aside. I mean, first of all, you were just a class dude, 100%, unbelievable. And you pulled him aside when I mentioned he was middle linebacker going to high school, and you said to him, and you were talking to him through some things. He was a smart kid. He knew how to play the position. And you said, what'd you say to him? Run, read and react, or run and react. And he was like, well, my coaches tell me, read and then fill the hole. He was like, man, just want to give you advice, run and react. And so he took that back. And you know what? He played at a very competitive high school in New Jersey, which was a lot of really good ones. Started for 3 years as a middle linebacker.
Nice.
Always knew how to fill the right gap. And that line became part of their coaching because they were asking him, man, you're always in the right gap. You're always there fast. And he's like, yeah, I got to talk to this guy, Jonathan Casillas. He told me, I should run and react and not just read and react.
No
and
doubt.
So thank you for that. So, hey, I want to just mention something. First game of the season, we're playing the Cowboys, man. It is just unbelievable to me. Jerry Jones comes out I'm sorry. I know this is crazy, but I just got to say it anyway. Jerry Jones comes out, and if I will tell you this: if Lance or Schmelke or Paulie Dot said some of the things about the specifics of the Giants' scheme and the changes they were going to make, the way Jerry Jones did. Jerry Jones comes out and says, "Oh, by the way, we're changing up our blocking scheme. We're going to make it a lot tighter. We're going to move our gaps a lot tighter. And oh, by the way, we're going to make it a lot more simple." They're making Dak Prescott out to sound like he's an idiot. I know he's not an idiot, but they're making him out to sound like an idiot. And there's other folks, Dan Orlovsky, other folks saying the same thing, which is they are making Dak so scared to have a turnover. I'm telling you, it's going to have a negative impact on that team. Their defense is great. Micah Parsons is unbelievable. I get it. But at the end of the day, I am telling you right now, they are going to take a step back. And the biggest issue is, like, he comes out and says these things. I'm sitting there in the Giant. I'm like, I can't imagine that Wink Martindale's like, oh, hey, really nice to know that the Cowboys are going to have a tighter blocking.
But Dave,
scheme.
in fairness, you really don't know at this point how much validity there is behind those comments. For example, earlier in the offseason, Dallas was emphasizing with Kellen Moore gone and Brian Schottenheimer now as their offensive coordinator, Mike McCarthy wants to run the football more, right? That was the whole storyline. So does that mean that they're going to have a run-pass ratio this season where it's all Tony Pollard and Dak Prescott as a spectator? Some of that stuff you throw out in the middle of February because it's so early in the season and you're emphasizing change. And then September, October rolls around, it's a completely different story.
And it's Jerry Jones. He's the owner.
Yeah.
He could say anything he wants.
And he's always been vocal, right? It's nothing new with him.
Like you said, Lance, or John. First of all, we're not saying none of that because there's people above us. There's nobody above Jerry Jones. He can say anything he wants. Who's going to fire him? Himself?
Sure.
I get it. I get it that he's saying anything he wants, but I actually don't think it's that far off. And at the end of the day, when you think about the type of information that they're putting out there just about where Dak is at, they're making him more scared around interceptions and turnovers. And anytime you do that to a quarterback, when you're going to take away his aggressiveness, you're going to take away his downfield shot.
Isn't this what we want, right? We want Dak to throw interceptions. We want Dak to be hesitant, right?
And Dave, it reminds me of the conversation, actually, and we appreciate the phone call. We'll let you go on that note. It reminds me, Jonathan, of the conversation that Giants fans were having about Daniel Jones entering last season, right? Don't turn the ball over. You got to bring the totals down. And you can make the same argument. Oh, mentally, it's going to get to DJ. He's going to overthink, right, every time he gets onto the field. And he had a very good season, right, in terms of ball security. So I understand it's the offseason. We're all yearning to get back on the field and talk about something. A lot of this stuff is just commentary that doesn't hold much substance at all. Yeah. I would not read, personally, much into anything that an owner, or a GM, or a coach says until we actually see some evidence out on the field.
He sounded like he was a little torn, like he was like an undercover Dallas fan or something. Didn't it sound like that, though?
I don't know if it came across as that.
No? I felt like he was he's like defending Dak. We don't care about Dak here.
No, it didn't sound like he was defending Dak.
I mean, I care about his health and all. I don't want anything to happen to him. But I hope he plays horrible against the Giants.
Well,
he throws us a whole bunch of interceptions.
What it came across to me, like any fan would do, right? You hear a rival talking about things and you try to twist it and turn it to maybe explain why the player won't do well in the upcoming season. That's how it sounded to me. Yeah. It's like, okay, well, Jerry said this, so how do we find it and fine-tune it to get to the point where it means Dak's going to overthink things? And once again, it reminds me of a similar conversation revolving around Daniel Jones at this time last season. And you could argue, how much turnovers do you want to talk about because DJ's going to start overthinking things? And was he? I mean, no different than this season, right? The talk is, well, if he's more aggressive, he takes more shots down the field. Aren't you worried that turnovers could go up, right? Because if you're going to air it out, right, you were talking about you want more explosive plays. Well, the harder you throw it down the field, the more so you do that, there's the risk of you're going to put the ball in danger, right? More so than you did last season. It's a trade-off.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I got a lot of respect for Dak. I think he's a good player. I mean, he's been good since he's been in the NFL. I don't expect him to throw as many interceptions as he did last year. I do expect him to be a pro and try to limit those interceptions. So, look, I don't care what Jerry Jones is saying and stuff like that. But what I do care is how the Giants play week 1. That's what I truly care about. And I think as of right now, how they're doing practices, the way the roster's looking, how they're giving the younger guys a lot of experience, how they're resting older guys. I feel like the Giants have a great plan to be ready for week 1 because that's all that matters. Who is ready? Who's on the roster? Who's ready to play week 1 versus Dallas?
Dak, by the way, prior to last season, he had 15 interceptions in 2022. Never had more than 13 in any of his given seasons. And we're talking about somebody that's been between 22 and 37 touchdowns, because throw away 2020. That was when he got hurt against the Giants. He's been fairly consistent. Last year was a bit of an outlier, but 15 interceptions, if you look at the rest of the league, not terrible. And also, a number of the interceptions reminded me of when Eli had one year where Eli was very high in the teens, on the precipice of the 20s. And you know what happened? You go back and you watch the film. How many throws off a wide receiver fingertips?
Hands,
Is that on the quarterback? There were a few that Dak had off the top of my head where that was a product of, wasn't necessarily a bad throw, it was off the chest. It was the Jacksonville game where the Jaguars won on a walk-off pick 6. Those things happen.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. But, I mean, whatever with Dak, right?
I'm just giving facts that are pertinent to the conversation. I could tell you're already wanting to move on from the subject at hand here. All right, let's head back to the phone lines. We check in with Keith and Merrick joining us here on BBKL. What's happening, Keith? What do you got for us?
Hey, guys.
Well,
Keith,
how
you doing?
We're doing well, but before we get to your answer, what do you think of Dom and the work he does? We're taking a survey on today's program, so it's only appropriate you throw your 2 cents in. Very curious.
Guys,
yes.
Guys, before I get started, I just want to make sure I give a shout-out to Dom. It's very important.
There you go.
I want to be the third caller to bring it up.
No, once again, the show's not complete unless you throw in your perspective on the job that he's doing, as he pats himself on the back. Yes.
He's doing an amazing job. He's no Pierce, though. Just kidding.
Oh.
Little backhanded compliment there. We like that, though. We like that. We want to hear more of that. Yeah. Because we like to keep the staff in check. We don't want their heads to get too big, Keith. So I commend you.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Two things. A, I was trying to do a review on Apple, on the Apple podcast. You guys are always promoting it. I'm having a lot of trouble finding a way to put a review just for Apple. So if you can maybe put that like on Twitter or something, just write instructions, because I'm having trouble and I really want to do it.
Instructions on how to write a review for the podcast. See, now, you know who you should have asked? You should have asked Dom before you came on, and then...
I did.
Oh, you did? And what was his response? Oh, he says he directed you to us. So we're supposed to host the show, take calls, and be a tech-savvy expert.
Yeah, that's all you want.
I didn't get that. Okay. Well, I mean, listen, to my knowledge, it's fairly simple, where I believe if you scroll down to the bottom where it lists all of the reviews, you should be able to click on some button that enables you to add your review. Oh, see, Dom is bringing this up in real time on his phone. This is tremendous here.
I love it.
Yes.
If you go onto the show's page and you just scroll all the way down to the reviews, it'll let you. It's a little purple box that says "Write a review."
So there you go.
Right on.
Perfect.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. I'll figure it out.
We have faith in you. We have confidence. We're pulling for you, Keith. We're pulling for you.
I can handle this one. Don't worry.
We hope so. I don't know. Pressure's on here. We'll see whether or not you can deal with adversity accordingly.
Thank you. To know my other question, which is actually related to the Giants.
I hope so. Yes.
I know you're talking about a couple kind of last week about how we have 6 wide receivers. One will probably, and Jameson Crowder might go to the practice squad based on what we need. Is there any other position where you think we're just having way too many people, and that person most likely will not make the team, end up either going to practice, because you feel strongly about going to the practice squad or going to another team where we're like fully loaded and just have too many players available?
All right, Keith, fair question. We'll leave it at that and appreciate the phone call. Well, wide receiver is a position we focused on. So he's asking, outside of wide receiver, another spot where you think the volume is so much that somebody's going to be cut and they may or may not make it back to the practice.
I don't even know if that's a thing. I don't even know if you can have too many people, because people will be cut. And it's like, why won't you have the most competition out there to get the best players available? And I don't know. I think the receiver room is definitely number one. And I think other positions need a little bit more depth. I don't really see another position that you can say is an overhaul of talent, because, yeah, we got a lot of guys, but how many guys are actually going to play? How many guys actually have experience? Besides that receiver room, I don't really see another room like that room.
I'll throw out two, and I'm
Okay.
with you. I don't think either of these positions
Not
has
on
the
that
same
level.
value.
Right.
No, but
Right.
the way I'll label it is, with respect to the caller's question, it's going to give the coaching staff some food for thought where they're going to have to weigh two guys against one another. So my first one is tight end.
I was about to say that.
Okay.
Yep. You got
Because-
Myrick, you got Cager. Yep.
You got Tommy Sweeney, who you
Yep,
brought in, who's a
Sweeney.
blocker. So it could come down to Tommy Sweeney and his skill set, blocker, fullback, tight end, versus do we keep a guy like Cager, who's another athlete cut out of the Darren Waller,
Yeah.
Daniel Bellinger school of thought,
Right.
okay? So there I could see you're going to maybe throw somebody onto waivers, and there's no guarantee that they're going to get through because do they keep 4 tight ends? I mean, unless they look at, once again, Sweeney or Myrick as a fullback, and that gives them the ability to keep Waller, Bellinger, Cager, and then Myrick or
Yeah.
Sweeney under the fullback. So there's some
I like that one.
a tough decision
Yep.
to make there. Then the other one I think is running back. No, because how many running backs are you going to keep? You've got Barkley, you've got Breida. Okay, we know those two guys. You just drafted Eric Gray, so he's a lock pretty much. Brightwell showed some really nice flashes last season. And oh, by the way, speaking of special teams, we didn't bring up Brightwell's name.
Yep.
Brightwell is a 4 special team guy.
Yep.
Okay, going back to his college days, and they just brought in James Robinson, the
yeah,
veteran.
They did just bring him in.
And let's not forget Jay Sean Corbin,
Yeah.
who was with the team last year.
Right.
So you're going to have a tough decision on the back end. Now, a guy like Brightwell, I think he helps his cause because of special teams.
special teams.
But I look at
And
running
Breida
back
too.
and tight
Breida's
end.
on teams too. Yep.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah. Those are the two positions that I think jump out to me where I don't know if it's 5 or 6 guys, but you're having a conversation about 2 to 3, and somebody's not earning a job, and it's not necessarily a reflection of they're not good enough.
Yeah, in those two positions, there's only really one guy out there, sometimes 2 guys out there max. Like tight end, you might throw 3 guys on the field. Very, very rare. All the other positions, defensive line, linebackers, you got multiple guys on the field at
Yep.
all times. Most of the time in those positions, there's only one guy on the field. There's only one running back on the field most of the time. I mean, Saquon's back, and they could do a lot of different things with Saquon. So we'll see. I didn't even look at it like that, but now that you actually bring the depth chart up, I could see tight end and running back being an overhaul. But that's a good problem to have.
Absolutely.
That's a really
Yep.
good problem to have, that you can look at several different positions and say, we got too many guys. Somebody's going to get cut. That's good. You want as many good players fighting for those limited positions as possible.
And remember, there are spots on the practice squad for proven veterans. So I'm just throwing out a hypothetical. James Robinson,
Yep.
if you cut him, there may be a chance that he could pass through waivers and get
land on
to
the
the practice squad. It's not
Yeah,
crazy.
Which you have a good guy in the reserve that has adequate experience in the NFL, that boom, all of a sudden somebody goes down, he can step in and don't miss a beat.
Like an Alfred Morris, who I think
Ooh,
back
I
to
remember him.
a few years ago.
Yes,
yeah.
sir.
Well, that was a 1,000-yard rusher when you were playing
Yeah.
consistently in his first few years in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Doing a lot of reminiscing about your playing days, specifically that 2016 season. Oh, by the way, before we get back to the lines, I was looking up the play-by-play. That caller earlier was referencing the Ravens game,
Yeah.
and I wanted to commend you because you were on point. Not that I ever doubted you. I just want to make the record clear. I always have had high thoughts in terms of your memory. But Terrence West, okay? Well, Terrence West, man, you without any hesitation, JC, you were on the money. Though I will add some clarity, okay? It was a goal line stand, but it's important to note, after the 2nd and goal from the 2, in which the pass to Terrence West was broken up from Joe Flacco, then the Ravens called a timeout, and then on 3rd and goal from the 2, they handed back to Terrence West. They ran you over into the end zone, and you guys did not finish the job, okay? So I understand the caller was giving you some brownie points, but I think it's important to get to the facts. There was a breakdown a little bit later on in the drive.
No, it was not. It was a turnover on downs. It was 4th down.
Well, the possession I'm looking at in the 4th quarter with over 2 minutes, you're thinking of the next possession. That was a 3rd and
The
15.
one he's talking about.
Well, but he was talking about goal line. You were not in the goal line on that last possession.
Boy, you better bring that up. Bring that up, Dom.
Well, we may have to have
You
a
better bring
little
that up.
film class
better
after the
bring that
show.
up.
I'm
You
just
talking
going
about
by the
ran me
whole
over.
play-by-play here. That's all. All right, the jury is still out apparently, but I didn't see no goal line stand on that very last possession. Oh, no. I'm more than confident standing behind my principles here on this program.
Bro, I made the play and walked off the field.
Well,
that's fourth down, bro. Giants got the ball right there.
Then something is up here on Pro Football Reference in terms of their breakdown and their play-by-play. This was the Ravens game from 2016.
Bro, it's like my best play. Of course I remember what happened. I watched it 1,000 times.
I'm just saying, I'm seeing Terrence West into the end zone for a touchdown with 2:08 to go.
Yeah.
Well, you show me where that play occurred, even if it was on the second possession. Because, see, on the second possession, 7 seconds left, 3rd and 15 from the 29. Flacco incomplete to Dennis Pitta. That's how the game ended. Because Odell scored the big touchdown.
Yeah, it wasn't at the end, though. It was like early in the fourth.
Okay, so it was earlier in the game. Okay.
Earlier in the fourth or late in the third.
Okay, well, see, that's a different story here. Now we're getting to the bottom of things here as I scroll through the breakdown of the game. Terrence West, no gain, 3rd and 1 from the Giants, 1. Third quarter, 38 seconds to go. So it was earlier in the game.
Fourth down. Why keep going to third down? It was 4th and 2 or 4th on the 2. Find it, man.
Yeah.
It's there somewhere.
No, it was 3rd and 1. You stopped him, and then you stopped him on 4th and 1. He lost a yard on that. So it was back-to-back plays. We got to the bottom of it, but it was in the third quarter. It wasn't game on the line in the fourth quarter. That's all
he was like, yo, you saw it? But you saw it? He was like, JC, no, that's not how it went. You got ran over for a touchdown. Sorry. It's like, no, Lance.
Well, no.
Am I mistaken or something?
That was a little bit later on in the fourth quarter.
They ended up scoring, but we won the game.
You won the game. I wasn't taking that away from you.
And it was a huge momentum-changing play.
It was indeed.
Odell took like a, 75-yard slant to the crib.
Took it to the house.
Not too long after that.
Yep.
It's okay, Lance.
I've got 4th and goal. New York Giants won. On
the
first snap of the fourth quarter.
Correct. Yes, because the 3rd and 1 was the very last play of the third.
Terrence West left, pushed out of bounds, and New York Giants won -1 yards.
Sure.
Jonathan Casillas.
Yeah. No. All good with that. I'm just saying it wasn't with the game on the line in the fourth quarter. That's all that I wanted to make sure.
Oh, you remember that? Yeah. He got up, the camera went on him. I'm like, what happened to me?
All right, let's head back to the phone lines here as we move along. Tom is in Stratford joining us here on BBKL. What's happening, Tom? What do you got for us?
Hey, shout out to Dom.
There we go. All right.
4.
Now, we're beyond the trifecta.
You know what?
4 for 4.
I'm doing a shout out to Pearson, too, even though he's not here today.
Oh, we will pass the message along to Pearson. Yeah. Anybody else you'd like to shout out? There's a cast of thousands on the other side of the camera that we can name.
That's okay.
Yeah.
These are the only ones I know. Anyways, is anyone on your program planning on going to Detroit next week?
Datino will be out
yeah,
there.
Schmelk will
and
be
so
there.
will Schmelk.
Yeah.
Yes. So we'll have 2 people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. And what time is the show on tomorrow and next week?
It'll be 1:30, like usual.
Oh, 1:30.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, usually it's 12:30.
Well, since the start of training camp, though, we've been at 1:30.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. My lunch is at 12:30. That's why I've been missing your shows.
Well,
okay.
12:30 was what we normally do throughout the regular season and the bulk of the offseason. But starting at training camp, we went to 1:30, and then we're going to shift to 11 a.m. a little bit later on into training camp. But we'll let you know in advance so you can plan accordingly,
okay.
Tom. Yeah. So you can mark it down in your calendar. Yes, exactly.
Thank you. Well,
not a problem.
Have a great day.
Okay. Oh, that was it? Wow. Okay. So we compliment Dom. We get clarification on the travel schedule of the staff.
Peace. Thank you.
And the time of the show, and then he just goes off. Just drops the mic like that. Okay. I was thinking maybe we get a little bit more substance out of that.
You want to take away any more Casillas plays before?
No. I wasn't taking away any plays. It was just, it was sold earlier in the program when you weren't here as the end of the game, the end-all, be-all, and I don't remember that happening, and I brought up the play. I'm not taking it away. I'm just clarifying the earlier conversation.
It wasn't the end of the game.
It wasn't the end of the game.
It wasn't
exactly.
the end
yes.
of the game.
Well, a lot happened after that.
It did. It did.
No. It was a big play at the time. But then Terrence West scores a touchdown. Odell went for the home run, and then you had to stop him on a 3rd and 15. I mean, that's ages and ages of more plays after the fact. That's all I'm saying. I'm not taking anything away from the guy next to me right here.
Okay.
You're stirring the pot and causing trouble as Schmelk
okay.
laughs and
Schmelk
giggles
is
like a
stirring the
little
pot.
schoolgirl off the camera. Yes. Now he has to make an appearance. Yeah, there we go. All right. Lollipops and rainbows.
My guy,
Yes.
man. He
Everybody.
I don't think we
is all on the same page.
It had to be clarification, you know. It
had to be clarification.
That's all right.
Yeah, no,
that's okay.
Caller earlier in the program. It was Jason in New Haven. I wasn't hearing things.
Lance is just mad his feet don't touch the floor.
No.
He stools. That's it.
My feet haven't touched the floor since I came out of the womb, okay? I've needed assistance. But I'm glad that we clarified that, okay? You see? It goes both ways on this program. Anything else that we would like to get out of the way? No, we're all good with that? Okay. Good. Finally, some closure with respect to that. Anybody else want to weigh in at the last second and give Dom a pat on the back? We've got about a few fractions of a second left on the program. Feel free to try to squeeze that in. With that being said, we'll be back up and running again tomorrow at 1:30 p.m. Eastern. Giants will have another practice open to the public at 10 a.m. Eastern, so we'll be recapping the festivities on that front. And a reminder, today's episode of Big Blue Kickoff Live is part of the Giants platforms everywhere and Giants.com/podcast. For Jonathan Casillas, the man who makes a goal line stand, and he makes sure that you all remember it with pride, I'm Lance Medow. That'll do it for us here on BBKL. Hey, I had to get my last shot in. We'll speak to you and see you tomorrow. Have a good one, everybody.